What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm an herbalist and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for getting on Patreon with me, where you can find an electional report to help you deal with your timing for your own personal business / romantic personal life, whatever that is. Thank you for getting on Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, whatever your favorite music streaming service is. Check out Can't Help Myself. Thank you for sending me a tip via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. All of that is super helpful to me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead, because we got some shit going down this week. First thing on the agenda is the new moon. Today is the new moon in Libra. So we've got both the sun and moon in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Virgo with Mercury. Mercury has just retrograded back into Virgo. So Mercury is deeply retrograde, deeply confused. Both Venus and Mercury are both opposite to Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is confounding by its nature. That's what it does. It doesn't really, Neptune doesn't like boundaries and structures and clarity and stuff like that. That's not how Neptune gets down. Neptune likes dreams. Neptune likes the kind of like, it's all the one stuff, you know, like metaphor and melody and song and stuff like that is really good with Neptune. Clarity and understanding is like not really forthcoming with Neptune. And so to see those folks in charge of the like opposite to Neptune and also in charge of the new moon here, this not only that, but this new moon is also opposite to Jupiter in Aries. That is so interesting to me because it looks kind of agitated. It looks like it wants to move in opposition to a planet in Aries. Definitely like wants to get it started, wants something to pop, wants to get like moving in some kind of way, while at the same time not really knowing what to do. I was thinking about this before and I was like, man, this looks so good for like war making pundits, you know what I mean? And partially that is because nobody else has any idea what to do, you know what I mean? So like part of the reason why I say that about it being good for those types of people is because we also see, so Jupiter is in Aries, right? So what's going on with the ruler of Aries? That's Mars. Mars is in Gemini. Mars is headed for retrograde at this point, but it's still moving forward. And Mars also gets this exact trine with Saturn. So when we think about Mars and Saturn together, and they're in a trine relationship, right? So they are working together. This is helpful and supportive to one another. Saturn is still in Aquarius, still in domicile, still able to do the Saturn thing pretty Saturnly, pretty strongly. Saturn like knows how to do the Saturn thing from this position. Of course, Saturn has retrograded back to 18 degrees, which is where Uranus is. Uranus is at 18 degrees of Taurus. So we've got that more or less exact square between Saturn and Uranus. So all of our Saturn-Uranus things are likely to sort of like blow up and become major breaking points. Again, that's what like Uranus loves, a good break up, break down, break through, right? So to see Uranus in such a strong, hard aspect with Saturn definitely is likely to bring up problems or chaos or upset, or the way that, you know, like Uranus is so unexpected and sudden in the way that it operates. And that, you know, that's going to be so, that's going to like sort of like side eye this, or it's going to like hit this Saturn, right? And so Saturn in Uranus, or Saturn in Aquarius rather, Saturn in Aquarius wants to keep things regular and keep things efficient and organized and work on the management of the thing and all this sort of stuff, right? Uranus is like, we're going to send upsets into that. And we're going to send upsets in this Uranus and Taurus kind of way. We're going to upset food, shelter, housing, you know, like basic necessities for living in an embodied form, the way that Taurus likes to talk about, right? And so there's going to be upset to that order, which is likely to motivate Saturn in a really strong way. We can remember as well, I talked about this a little bit in the Q4 forecast with Palace and Cameron. Make sure and check that out on the podcast if you haven't checked that out yet. There's we talked about the whole quarter ahead, and part of what I mentioned in that is that Saturn is running out of time here. So Saturn is in domicile now and has been in domicile for about 5 years up to this point. And so now Saturn is moving out of that position and is going to start being in like Saturn's going to have to deal with someone else's rulership after this. And so to my mind, Saturn like sees this coming, and because of that is getting a little bit like, okay, the Saturn plan, the Aquarius plan, right? So Saturn in Aquarius has been trying to sort of like, you know, like if you say like New World Order, then it sounds like it sounds crazy, right? It sounds like a little tinfoil hat or whatever. But really, like ordering things, that's what Saturn does. And so, you know, there's been this like, you know, Saturn in Aquarius has been the Saturn return of the internet and that sort of stuff, right? So there's a kind of informational order that is genuinely novel. It's a new kind of way of ordering the world, right? So Saturn has been trying to get that done, trying to get that project done and generate a way of sort of structuring reality that is especially, you know, like dealing with information and tech and communication and that sort of stuff is like primary, that's paramount to the situation. Now Uranus is coming in and disrupting that sort of stuff, and Saturn has been like trying to hold a lid on that for a little while, but Saturn can see that this is getting a little bit out of hand here. And so we might start to see some like desperate measures being taken in a desperate circumstance. It's like Saturn is like, okay, I'm running out of time here. I got to get some stuff going. Meanwhile, we got a trine to Mars in Gemini, right? So Saturn wants to be supportive to the Mars thing. So Mars in Gemini is headed for a retrograde, right? So this is like kind of an especially mean and grumpy Mars. And so Saturn wants to support that. To my mind, this is the organizing principle being like, look, it's time to move, it's time to go and do some action-oriented things and get Mars popping. Now, this is the first of two trines that Mars is going to get from Saturn. Mars is going forward for a little while, and is going to get this trine this week. Then it's going to move back during the retrograde. It's going to get another trine from Saturn. And then when Mars moves forward again, the next one is going to be Saturn in Pisces trine Mars in Cancer. So that's a whole different game. And then, you know, and so once we get to that point, we've got water sign dynamics going on. We've got like big feelings and emotions and again, more confusion at that point. So what we're seeing at this point, this is like our first hit here. So we're seeing Saturn really pushing for that Mars to get going. Now, the good news here is that we do also have Venus moving into Libra this week. That is super helpful. Whenever we think about Venus and Libra, we can think about things like etiquette. We can think about, you know, playing nice or trying to like things like negotiations or, you know, listening to the other side and being like, okay, like how can we come to a compromise or how can we get to an agreement, right? Libra is the sign of the scales, and we can think about the scales and the marketplace and sort of like weighing up what is fair for me and what's fair for you and what's a good deal. How can we come away from this interaction, from this transaction and feeling like we have done a good job? How can everybody feel good at the end of this encounter? That's what every merchant wants, right? Most merchants are not scammers. Most merchants want you to enjoy the product that you bought from them, because then you go on and tell other people, and that everybody is happy this way, right? So Venus moving into Libra, that is Venus moving into domicile, right? That's Venus getting into a home position rather than Venus in Virgo, which we've had for a little while. I've been talking about Venus in Virgo is like gets kind of grumpy about the details and all this sort of stuff. Venus moving into Libra, that's Venus moving into domicile. That's Venus being able to do the Venus things like harmony and relationships and, you know, sweetness and these kind of grace, elegance, these kinds of things show up a lot with Venus and Libra. I really like this Venus and Libra during this time. It's really one of our saving graces here, especially while Mars is getting crazy and Saturn's getting crazy and Uranus is getting crazy and Jupiter is kind of confirming and just saying yes to all that shit. It's going to be good for us to see Venus and Libra, you know, remembering that there are other people around and maybe we should be nice as a community sometimes. So For more on this, make sure and check out the Q4 forecast. Get on Patreon, check me out. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.